I saw a superhero, he was black. He said, this is for the streets. Black Lightning's back.
The streak continues with another really good episode of Black Lightning. And this was the 4th episode of Season 4. The episode was titled The Book of Reconstruction, Chapter 4, A Light in the Darkness. And like I said before, this was another really good episode of Black Lightning. I do have to say, though, that it definitely was off to a slow start, though. I feel like the first half of this episode was kind of slow. It was more to set up the stuff that was about to go down in the second half, but once you did get into that second half of the episode, things really start to take off, and that was where things got really interesting. So guys, we have a lot to talk about here, but of course I gotta give a spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode yet, because we are going in depth and breaking down all the major details from this episode. And of course, let me know all your thoughts on this episode in the comments below as well. But let's get into talking about Gambi's storyline in this episode, because he had a small storyline, but still I feel like a bit of an important storyline that was overshadowed a bit, but it was still an important role that we need to talk about. So we see the beginning of the episode that he is working with TC to come up with a plan to delay the rollout of the DEGs. And TC is able to basically design a flaw in the DEGs. So then later on in the episode, we see that Gambi actually mentions that flaw to Laura, and then it's like mission success, and they're able to successfully delay the rollout of the DEGs. So that's good, and then it seems like they have a date, so good for Gambi. And then she thanks him for, like, he saved lives and everything, and then she's like, I've got something to show you, but first I'm gonna thank you in another way, and they head off to the bedroom. So ooh la la. So that was really cool. And then we saw at the end of the episode that she is working on some sort of project that was specifically requested by her boss to work on by herself, but now Gambi's gonna be teaming up with her to work on that. So it's going to be interesting to see what that thing is for. It was something to do with like the continuation of like Thomas Edison's designs and stuff. So I'm assuming some sort of electrical field. So I'm interested to see where this will go in next week's episode. But like I said, small storyline there, but still some important details that we had to talk about. Now we have Anissa and Grace. So now they're officially married, and of course, as all married couples do, they squabble and they have fights, and they just got back home and already they're having a fight. But I love this moment when Anissa got Grace a gift, and we found out that Grace is a comic fan, and Anissa got her a copy of her favorite comic, which is actually an issue of The Outsiders, which in the comics is what this team is. That's the team in DC Comics that consists of Black Lightning, and it usually has like Metamorpho and Geoforce, which is Brandon. Haven't seen him this season though. So we saw an adaptation of The Outsiders last season, and hopefully we see that by the end of this season as well. But I thought that was a nice reference that we saw there. But then you kind of get a real nice happy ending here to that very short fight there, where they decide, like, all right, we're going to go get Grace's stuff, and then this apartment isn't just going to be Anissa's apartment anymore, it's going to be our apartment. So of course that was a nice moment there. But then there's an alert that that Tobias and the mayor are doing this basically unveiling ceremony of the DEGs. So they got to suit up and go out on patrol to make sure nothing bad goes down. But of course, bad stuff does go down. So they head out on their mission. And this is where we get Grace actually taking on the role of something. Because at first, we see Anissa, she's there as Blackbird. And then Jen is there as Lightning. And then you just got Grace in a hoodie. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, man, they really need to give her like a code name and a suit and everything. And then they do. So she's decided to call herself Wild, which I don't know if that's something from the comics, but even if it's not, that's a cool name, and it makes sense with what her powers are, because she is kind of like a wild card, and she can turn into animals and stuff. And then with her shape-shifting abilities, she now has pink hair and she's got a mask like Blackbird. So it's pretty simple design, but she still definitely looked really cool. She had the like cat eyes and stuff too. So I think that was really cool, and I like this new persona and alter ego for Grace. I'm excited to see more of Wild in the rest of this season. But, of course, as I said, stuff goes down, and Lala, of course, crashes this ceremony, and now the mayor is dead. And at first I was like, seriously? Like, literally, you didn't see the mayor at all during that fight scene when they were shooting, and then all of a sudden he was on the ground, and then the officer guy was like, yo, the mayor's dead. And I was like, what? That's kind of out of nowhere. But then we get revealed at the end of the episode that Lala and his gang, the 100, are not responsible for the death of the mayor. That was actually the doing of Tobias, because his bodyguard, his henchman, who looks very much like Victor Zsasz from Gotham, I'm pretty sure it's a different actor though, this character has powers, and he is able to make stuff levitate and float and stuff. So he was the one that actually made the bullets fly into the mayor and ultimately kill him. So they're responsible for that. That was Tobias's big plan there. So that was pretty crazy. But I really enjoyed that. Again, I like seeing Grace finally get a persona, and that twist at the end, because again, I was a little confused by like, how is he all of a sudden dead? But that explains it with the bodyguard, which I don't know if they've named him yet, but him having powers. So now, let's get into the main thing of the episode with Jefferson. So he's, again, having more nightmares. Things are not going well with him. And this is 3 days later after he walked in on Lynn having dinner with Tobias, but he never actually walked in on them. He kind of just walked out after that. And so far, she hasn't even brought it up. She never even mentioned it to him. And he's obviously really, really mad about that. And he's just mad about Tobias. He's just waiting for Tobias to slip up so that he can catch him in the act and take him down once and for all. So he actually goes and he confronts Tobias in this episode. And in this scene, not really anything is revealed, but I love how Tobias just really plays with him and toys with him with his feelings and stuff. And it's like, it's very villainous, and that's why he is such a great villain here. So I love seeing that. And then another really interesting thing is that Jefferson is still fighting for Lala in his underground fighting arena, which is really interesting. And that's his choice. It's not like he's stuck in there. Lala was even trying to get him to stop doing it. But that, I mean, it makes sense because it can, you know, fighting and boxing and stuff like that, that's a good outlet of rage and your emotions. So it makes sense that this would be good for him to help cope with his emotions. So I think that's great and everything. But then the problem is, TC is watching this stream, and of course the fighters' faces are blurred out, but with his powers, he's able to unblur the faces, and then that's when it's revealed to both TC and Jennifer that that's her father, and he's doing this whole underground fight club thing. So then Lynn finds out about it, she's all upset about it, and then he brings up the Tobias with dinner thing, and then there's this big blow up, big fight, things do not go well here, but then this was one of my favorite scenes from the episode, when Jeff goes to the bar, and people are talking about, everybody still hates Lightning and Blackbird and all these new metahumans. But then there's this one guy who's like, yeah, but they ain't like Black Lightning because he's old school and stuff. And like, he was a real hero. And like, a bunch of people are all supporting Black Lightning. And then Jefferson pipes in and he says like, what did Black Lightning actually do other than just beat up a couple thugs? And then we have that officer guy that was he was training under Henderson. I still don't remember his name. But clearly he's going to have an important role here. And he stands up and he defends Black Lightning, like really defends him, says like, he saved me when I was a kid. He was the one that got me back to going to school and everything. He was the one that inspired me to be a cop. So this was just a really awesome moment and a really awesome scene, because he was like, you know, if you're going to be talking about Black Lightning, put some respect to his name. And yeah. And the person disrespecting Black Lightning was actually Black Lightning. So I really loved that scene. That was just a really powerful scene. And you can see that they're planting these little seeds. And just these little small moments like this are really going to drive Jefferson by the end of the season to suit back up and become Black Lightning once again. So again, I just really, really loved that scene. That was a really powerful scene. But then he goes back home and he apologizes to Lynn for letting his grief take control of him. And then she apologizes for not telling him about the Tobias thing and assures him that she's not going to work for him. But then he suggests that maybe she should, because then she could be like an inside source, because he's always like 7 steps ahead of them. So maybe if she's working with him, they would be able to find a quicker way to take him down. So that's definitely something that's going to happen, and I'm excited to see how that happens, because it's definitely a risky situation, especially if they get caught with it all being like pretending. So I'm interested to see that. But then Jefferson is basically just making the rounds after this, apologizing to everyone, including Jen, and it's pretty much the same thing. Like, he apologizes, like, you know, after the death of Henderson, he's just hasn't been able to cope with this and he's been having some hard times. But then after he leaves, Jen goes out the window and goes back up into the sky. And that's when she goes back up to the ionic sphere to charge up again, because it feels good and everything. But this time something goes wrong, and like her levels are all off the charts, and she's like, something's wrong. It's too much power. And then her body just starts cracking and crackling. And then all of a sudden she blows up. And that was kind of an unexpected moment. I did not expect to see that again. You know, going into the scene, I thought it was pretty predictable. I was like, oh, great, now she's going to fall through from the sky again, and she's going to be having more problems with that. But no, she literally blew up. Now, I don't think she's dead. There's no way she's dead, because we did see the particles kind of like start to float back together. So I feel like now, maybe instead of just being able to turn her body into lightning energy, I feel like she's now actually maybe become a being of pure energy, which is really interesting. And I think that's definitely going to be a major power up for that character. It's going to be interesting to see how she learns to use these new powers, and how she explains to her parents, like, yeah, I blew up, but now I'm living energy. So, you know, that's cool. But yeah, guys, that was the big cliffhanger for the episode. Definitely an interesting cliffhanger that I'm excited to see how this follows up in the next episode. But again, another great episode. Like I said, a slow start, but once you got into that second half, it got real good. So I really enjoyed this episode of Black Lightning. But guys, of course, let me know down in the comments below all your thoughts on this episode and all your theories for the future of Black Lightning Season 4. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.